Hello, here is your astrology chart with some markings that I've made. And I'm going to start off by looking at the lineage. So, the lineage describes special skills or tools, things that you already are a master of. So, without even trying, it's just something that from the time you start to display a character, it'll appear to be something like your lineage. So your mom would notice these things about you from the time you were a little kid. So for your lineage, we start off by looking at the moon, which is a Taurus moon. So a Taurus moon would be somebody who is naturally inclined to being self loving, open to receiving. So, as a little kid, would be somebody who naturally was able to receive gifts and therefore probably received more gifts. Gifts of abundance, beauty, being shown the beautiful things in life. So maybe traveling more, going places, definitely having abundance and wealth. And, as a kid, somebody with a Taurus moon most usually will been, have gifts bestowed upon them. So Taurus is a receiving type of energy. It likes to receive. And don't be confused with like selfish or something like that. Taurus is known as self interested. It's interested in learning about itself and very, very much in love with its own beauty and things that bring pleasure. So when I think about this from a tribe position, I like to sometimes talk about this like if you were born into the Taurus tribe, it would have been the tribe that was, getting massages, being fed grapes by beautiful women, surrounded by natural beauty. So then we look at the specialty, and we find that by looking at the South Node. The specialty is just a sort of the way that we look at the South and North Node. Everything on the chart is always looked at in a few different ways. But for what the reading that I'm doing for you now, we're going to look at the South Node like it is sort of within that tribe of the healthy receivers who are getting massages and being fed grapes. Your specialty is that of the warrior. So the South Node is in the first house. The first house is an energy of the protector of the tribe. We'll refer to this as a warrior or a protector. So it's the same kind of energy. It's like they're badass and they fight for whatever it is that they are in charge of protecting. So then we look at the new school. So from the lineage, this is something that you've already mastered, something that you don't even have to try anymore. Actually, the way this goes is like if you keep doing those things from the lineage, which I can see that, when I look at you, I can totally see Taurus coming out, and I can totally see the Aries, the protector warrior thing, and that's just from looking at your pictures on Facebook. It's like all this warrior energy plus super luxurious, beautiful nature scenes. And so that's displayed. And the idea is that we want to progress in life and move more toward, what's going to be evolving. So what am I here to learn about now? And when we ask that question astrologically, we look at the rising sign, and we also look at the North Node. So your North Node is over here, and this says a lot to me. And I can tell you more about that at another time. I'm going to keep it really basic for this reading so you can, really grasp the fundamentals of your chart. So here, the ascendant is now what? I'm here, I signed up for this school, and now this is what you're learning about. You have Gemini rising. So people with Gemini rising are learning all about being creative. I call Gemini the creative muse. It's always looking for a muse when it's a rising sign. It wants to have something that inspires them to create. Also, another thing about, okay, so let's just look at it like this to start off with. The rising sign will be where you're going to make the most mistakes, because this is like signing up for a school. You don't really know about the school. You don't know what's going to happen. And just like when you're a baby learning how to walk, you're going to make mistakes. So the Gemini rising mistakes for you would be something like being too playful, too spontaneous. This is like Peter Pan, like never growing up. It's actually something that Gemini is, it's going to be a part of, you're going to be like Peter Pan. That's something that isn't going to go away. It's a very childlike, fresh, inspiring. Gemini rising wants to bring joy. So it's in service to spirit through bringing joy, playfulness, spontaneity. So with that, you can see that some of the mistakes that you might make might, staying too much in that zone of being a boy and not really ever feeling mature and feel that you're growing up. And don't worry, because with Gemini rising, your pathway to evolution is actually not to grow up and be like a mature grown up with a structure and a discipline and all that. With Gemini rising, it's how can I be childlike and fresh and creative and and still be able to have, okay, let's just leave it right there. I can't really say yet, what's the next thing, because it's really hard to sort of wrap your mind around the fact that, to evolve, you must find a way to be playful. You must find a way to keep that childlike energy alive in you forever, maturing and growing up in a way that you get to stay playful and young forever. That sounds like fun. So that's the new school, learning about Gemini. And then the specialty here. So this is a really interesting combination of a new school, because actually the combination you have is what my teachers often refer to as like the one and only time that somebody with Gemini rising would be interested in having a partnership, because Gemini rising is notorious for being, they skip around from partners. They don't really, it's like they'll be in love for a week. They'll be in love for a day. They'll be in love for a couple of days. And then they move on to the next thing. If you know the myth of Copapelli, just look that up, Copapelli. That's the archetype that we think of that is related to Gemini. But since your North Node is in the 7th house, your style of Gemini is relational. So just like what we were saying with the lineage, your moon position, you're a master of the Taurus things, being open to receive pleasure and beauty. And you have a specialty of being the warrior. That's like within this tribe, you are the warrior. With the rising sign, we'll say that your tribe is Copapelli. It's the musicians, the wanderers, the artists, the creative people. Those guys don't usually have wives and girlfriends, you know what I mean? But since your North Node is in the 7th house, it says that you actually do want to have a relationship, a romantic relationship. And it is very important to you because you have the Sun and Vesta. So this first house we look at when we're asking, who am I? For you, it is really about being the creative muse, creating art, being spontaneous and playful. Also bringing some of your lineage into this warrior thing is part of your, because it's here in the first house, we would say that bringing that to a maturity, the warrior is still part of what you're mastering in this lifetime also. So who am I? Okay, then we have Gemini over here. Over here is who are you? And this is referred to as the relationship axis. Who are you? This is your beloved. I call this the inner lover. My school calls it the outer other. So however you relate to that. I like to draw a picture here. So say this is you sitting at dinner with your beloved, and she's over here. And you're looking across the table at her. Okay, so this relationship axis is all about having a quest mate. Somebody who is interested in going on the quest, the mission, interested in traveling, interested in learning new things, an undying quest. So she doesn't have to be necessarily on your exact same quest. I'm just going to draw a picture. So it would be amazing if she was like super into fitness, super into spirituality and philosophy and thinking and all that. Because ultimately somebody with this relationship axis wants to have somebody to take the quest of life with, to be together with. But as long as she has her own quest, this relationship axis is one of the more radical pathways of relationship. It's not the traditional husband, wife, get married, stay in a house, and have a routine. That's like not your pathway for relationship. So I think the point I was making is that since you have the North Node over here, who are you? This tells me that you actually would prefer to have a partner. So moving on from that, let's look at your inner masculine now. The inner masculine is the way that you carry your sword. So Carl Jung had this definition of what is masculine, and the way that he described it is the way you carry your sword. Or he said that the sword that you carry, or something about knowing how to carry your sword, or something like that. So basically saying that masculine does not always mean that you're like fixing cars and pumping iron. That's not necessarily masculine at all. And it's really interesting because your Mars is in Cancer. So for you, your masculine energy is expressed through being nurturing, loving. When you are, I like to give this description when a man has his Mars in Cancer. So the way that you would be manly, showing up for your significant other, it would be through being compassionate, through being loving, listening to her, understanding, cooking her food, bringing her flowers, maybe doing some work in the garden. Your form of the masculine is like what we would traditionally call feminine, So that's the way that you're showing up as a man. So then we look at the feminine, and here we can see what type of woman you're interested in, or so the Venus on a man's chart shows what the form of the goddess that you most wish to connect with. And Venus for you is over here in Cancer. So this is the form of the goddess who is very stable, a boss, like a leader. She doesn't need your money. She doesn't need your house or your car. She doesn't need your wealth and your name. She already has her own. And she's like, I usually will think of Madonna when I think of Venus in Capricorn. It's like you know, mature, sexy, and she doesn't need somebody, but you know, she's still relational. It's just you know, not traditional at all. Not traditional. So that's your inner feminine. The thing is about the inner feminine is that it's you also. This is your chart. This is your inner feminine, and we can guess that you like that type of woman who is, you know, displaying the Capricorn type of traits of being sturdy, independent, taking care of her business. But basically, this is you. So, what we want to do is unite within your own masculine and your own feminine energy. It's really interesting because yours are opposing each other. So they're looking right across at each other, which it's one of the indicators that you would benefit from doing the sacred marriage. So I'm just going to give you a link for an article that I wrote last year that has some steps to follow to do the sacred marriage for yourself. Okay, so I think that's a lot of material. I think I'll probably stop here and let that sort of simmer a little bit. Let me know if you have any questions. I guess I'll just, since I did mention that this was meaningful, because this is the seventh house is known as intimacy and relationships. And your North Node, your Sun, and Vesta are all there. To me, what this says is that your intimate relationship or relationships, just because Gemini Sagittarius is more open to alternative relating styles, your relation, let's say you're relating with women, is partially bringing you into your life purpose. It's also something that, since the sun is here, let's talk about the sun. The sun describes, you know that saying, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything? That's the sun. So Sagittarius flare. You have Sagittarius sort of touching everything you do in your life. So on a quest, on a mission. And this is really where that conscious warrior comes in, because the first house being the warrior, and Sagittarius is all about the mission, the quest for consciousness to evolve. So this little symbol is for Vesta, which is the sacred hearth, which is like the fire inside of you, the devotion, love, kind of like what you wake up for every day. And it's all jumbled up here in your seventh house, which says to me that your intimate relationships are super important to you. And it's actually part of your pathway to evolution and expansion. So there's that. I'm going to leave it there. One last thing I'll mention is just, I don't know how familiar you are with astrology, but here is from the perspective of the earth. This is a map of the sky the moment you were born. And then out here on the outer ring is where everything is in the sky today. So one thing I noticed is that you just finished a Jupiter return. A Jupiter return is basically like a super lucky time in your life where you're really starting to realize what you're doing in life. And this should be, I think, your second one. We have, I think they're every 14 years. So this is your second Jupiter return. I think that's how it goes. If you're 24, and it would have been somewhere around your birthday. And anyway, that's past. It's over with. But there's a lot of things we can find out from, you know, what's happening in the sky right now, how it is affecting you astrologically. So I'll leave it like that. Thank you so much for letting me read your chart. I will talk to you soon.